Kashmir's internet has been blocked, not open for another few days. Reports of deaths, protests from Pakistan. Assalamu alaikum, welcome. This is the only way up. Can you believe this is going on in Pakistan administered Kashmir? Muslims, Pakistani, lot of links to Pakistan, and there is talks and reports and videos of Pakistani personnel shooting and killing Muslims in Kashmir. What's going on?
Yeah, Sakam Shani. So Kashmir obviously is never away from the headlines, even if it doesn't get much coverage. So what's happened on this occasion is there's been talks going on for a while between the government of Pakistan and the parliament in Pakistan called Kashmir for new legislative elections. And what's been going on is Pakistan wanted a quarter of the seats to be reserved. So these were seats that Pakistan wanted to allocate to people who live in Pakistan rather than Pakistan held Kashmir. So this led to lots of tension. And then in the end, what the government in Pakistan did, well, they announced at the beginning of June that elections are going to happen at the end of July. And what they did was they cut the internet, they cut mobile phone networks, and they sent in the military. And they said that this is going to remain until the elections happen. This is where it started from, and what you've got is, as far as the Kashmiris see it, this is Pakistan trying to dominate the politics of Kashmir, and talks obviously broke down. Now, Pakistan held Kashmir. It effectively has its own parliament, it has its own prime minister, it has its own legislature as well. Its foreign policy, defense, and these things are intertwined with Pakistan. But in terms of the day-to-day running, it has its own administration, it has elections. So what's worrying is for decades it's been about Kashmir banega Pakistan. These are our people. In the Indian held aspect of Kashmir, there's been obviously fighting and disputes going on for a long time. Now, if this is how Pakistan treats its side of Kashmir, it's not a really good sign for the future. And in fact, many people in Kashmir feel Pakistan, they've not really done much about the Kashmir issue. In fact, they've given up on the Kashmir issue. And apart from Kashmir Day every year where they think about it and celebrate it, practically there's nothing going on. And during the Musharraf era, he even spoke directly with the Indians of setting up a separate system in Kashmir. So this comes in the light of Kashmiris feeling abandoned anyway. And then now this has happened, and the heavy handed intervention by Pakistan doesn't really help. And in long run, this has serious implications. If you're India, you're licking your lips. If you're India, you're thinking, we can take advantage of this. So that's unfortunately what's going on, and this is probably quite telling. If you look across the Muslim world, many of our leaders, they're unable to unify different peoples, different regions, and usually they resort to heavy-handed tactics like this. And history has shown that these heavy-handed tactics don't work. It turns people away, and if a foreign power intervenes, they will just separate the territory. They will give them independence. This is what's happened in Iraq now. This is what the Kurds obviously want as well. So it's a really, really bad sign. And some of the pictures coming out and some reports coming out, they're actually quite brutal. It's like, I mean, this isn't a territory that's trying to secede from Pakistan. What they're saying is why are seats, why can Kashmiris not stand for all these seats? Why are some actually being reserved? So again, a very small issue which is now ballooned into something much bigger.
Yeah, and I think this is the latest domino to fall in the world where countries are falling like dominoes. We had last year Morocco, there was protests. Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina was booted out. Nepal, the prime minister, president was booted out. In Sri Lanka, in Brazil, Argentina, and even in UK in terms of the protests that are happening. And Kashmir is the latest in this long line of uh, collapsing world order. It's not working no more. I think that's the deep issue behind this. People are saying, they had a long list of demands, and most of them were based on cost of living, price of atta, schooling, basic healthcare, these types of things. Where if you don't have a particular income, it's out of reach, absolutely out of reach. So I think, it's sad was what we're seeing, but what is confirmed is the leadership of Pakistan, military and civilian, is still clinging on to the collapsing order, and have got no vision for the future. And when the order isn't giving you answers, when the interest rates aren't working, when the loans aren't working, when the IMFs aren't working, what do you turn to? Brutality. Brutality to keep hold or keep stitching the order together, though it's inevitable, it's falling apart. And this is just a flashpoint, and the falling of the dominoes in this global order that's breaking apart.
Yeah, so it's sad because this is actually an internal issue that actually can be dealt with pretty easily. But unfortunately, the government, successive governments in Pakistan, they don't have a good track record. If you look at Balochistan, if you look at historically in Karachi, if you look at, well, it used to be NWFP, but it's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa now. There have been issues, lingering issues that go on for decades because of the heavy-handed approach. And the successive leaders in Pakistan or the militaries haven't learned that you can't just force a solution. You're dealing with people here, you're dealing with their livelihoods, and there's blowback. These things can come back to come and haunt you. And the thing with Kashmir is Pakistan's always projected, Kashmir is our, it's a part of us, we're the same people, but this is how they're actually treating them. And what this shows you that you can be a ruler who is very good, you could be a brutal ruler, you could be a ruler that has a lot of power. Look, unless you have a systemic way of how do you unify your people, how do you use the resources in a way where everybody gets a share of it, you can be the strongest ruler in the world, but you can be like Gaddafi. You last for a long time, and then you get pulled out of a sewage pipe. Unless you actually solve people's issues, and that requires some more systematic thinking. It requires an ideological viewpoint. Anybody can be a ruler. Trump's finding out the hard way now. Getting into power is the easy bit unless you have a consistent way of looking at problems and not dealing with a problem and creating 20 other problems. These things are inevitable. And what you find of our leaders is some of them may be very successful in projecting an image of strength, or people like the personality. But what you find common theme across the Muslim world, there isn't a systematic way of dealing with problems, solving problems, dealing with problems in a way where all the different solutions complement each other rather than they all get in the way of each other and cause further issues. And the Kashmiri people, ethnically, from a theological perspective, they're the same people as the Pakistanis. So, how is this possible? So in that sense, it should have been easier to unify with them. But unfortunately, the approach Pakistan's taken again is the heavy-handed approach, and this always ends in disaster in the end.
Yeah, and I think the Kashmir issue, you can look at it as, in the context of all the other countries and the protests and what's going on, is there could be death pangs or birth pains. Either, is it the whole system's collapsing, the whole Middle East is collapsing, or is it birth pains of a new order, a new way of life, a new outlook for the Middle East and Pakistan and the Muslim region? And broadly speaking, I would say it's a birth pains. It's transitioning from order which chained it down, which held on to it, which invested a huge amount of capital, intellectual capital, military capital, economic capital, and is not letting go. And at the same time, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Gaza have shown the really difficult birth pains that the Ummah, the region is going through to come out of this jail and come into and stand on its own 2 feet and understand who it is, understand what it is, and live in a way that's part of its belief and thinking and outlook. So it can be seen as doom and gloom and down and out, and there is suffering, and we can never belittle that. But at the same time, in the broader context, uh, hopefully these will be steps that lead to a better situation. And you can see that in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he went from being exiled, to being stoned, to being chased, and hiding in a cave, to Badr, to Uhud, to Azab. There were a lot of birth pains for a Islamic environment to come about, and for the shackles that kept dragging it back and wanting it to fail to let go, and for it to succeed. So hopefully, this is just a step in that process that leads to a better future. Jazakallah khair for listening. Leave your thoughts, comments below, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.